Hi and welcome. I'm Steve Martirano, and this is the Behavioral Corner. You're invited to hang with us as we discuss the ways we live today, the choices we make, the things we do, and how they affect our health and well-being. So you're on the corner, the Behavioral Corner. Please hang around a while. Oh, it's great to be back on the corner. You know I love it here. You bump into all kinds of great people. Take the fellow that is with us this time around, John Brazer. When I first met John, I won't tell you in the context that I'll give it away. When I first met John and realized what he not only did for a living, but what the job description was, I thought, damn if that ain't the coolest job I ever heard of in my life. John Brazer has spent the better part of his entire adult life as the director of what they euphemistically call, but actually mean, the director of fun and games for a major league sports franchise. Our beloved Philadelphia Phillies here in this area. That's what John did for a living. He's doing for a living. Now, of course, both of those things, fun and games, are in very, very short supply. So John's with us to talk about what that job is, how he got it, what he does as director of fun and games, and centrally, why baseball matters, if it still matters in the middle of a pandemic. John Brazer, welcome to the Behavioral Corner. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, Steve. How you doing?
Well, you know what? I'm doing the best I can, like everybody else. It's the damnedest thing any of us have ever seen. You know, this thing, and we'll get deeper into it, the pandemic has affected everybody's life in ways small and huge, and I don't think anybody's borne any greater burden than anybody else. I mean, certainly frontline workers and all those, but your job has been particularly impacted, and we'll find out in what ways straight ahead. So, you know, how do you become the director of fun and games for a baseball team? How'd that start?
I'll tell you I'll try to make it a quick story. I grew up in Philadelphia in the suburbs, and just like a lot of people in the Delaware Valley, a huge sports fan. My dad had season tickets for the Eagles, so I'd sit up I think we were up in the 500 level. And I'm 55 years old. So when I started going with my dad, it was when Mike Burlow was the quarterback. The team was awful. And so I feel like I suffered and basically grew until they, grew with the Philly or with the Eagles until, Super Bowl in 1980. And then obviously, throughout everything. So Sixers, same thing, Flyers. I went to the parade for the Flyers. I was, even though I was probably 9 years old at the time, I went to the parade. I went to the parade of the Sixers. And so I'm a diehard sports fan. Now, if you had told me I was going to work in sports, way back when, I didn't even know there was jobs in sports. Didn't even think that would be possible. I went to University of Virginia and I was a liberal arts major. I assumed I was going to be a salesperson because my dad was in sales, brother was in sales, mom was in marketing. So I wanted to not do anything specific in school as far as being a business major. I wanted to be liberal arts, and then knowing that I was getting into sales, learn how to communicate, via liberal arts. So I was, believe it or not, Steve, I was a religious studies major and a history minor. And everyone kept saying, what are you going to become, a priest, a rabbi? What are you doing over here? And next thing you know, I started interviewing companies, but I played club lacrosse down at school and I did a lot of coaching, and I got a job offer to, out of the blue, to play lacrosse and coach lacrosse in Manchester, England, right out of college. I had never been to Europe before at that point. So I said, what a great opportunity. You get to live in Europe basically for free and actually get paid. So I did that. So I basically prolonged or put off my maturity for a year, came back, started interviewing companies, got a job with Aetna selling employee benefits, basically corporate health insurance. Did that for 3 years in Baltimore. Then did a job in 2 years as a consultant for a company in D.C. And then this is where you never know where life's going to change on a dime. I met a guy at a wedding up in Philadelphia, and I'd been away from Philadelphia for now, 10 years or so. And next thing you know, this guy, I hit it off with this guy, had no idea he was looking to hire somebody. I just found it fascinating. This guy worked for the Phillies. He had a job in sports. He asked me what I did for a living. And as I was about to explain, the band starts playing Joe Cocker, Feeling All Right. Well, in college, I used to do a Joe Cocker impression. Actually, it was a John Belushi imitating Joe Cocker impression.
Right.
And so all my college buddies were like, Brazer, get up there. So next thing you know, I said, Dennis, I'll be right back. I went up on the stage, belted out Joe Cocker, and I said, that guy asked me a question. I better go back. So I went back. Next thing you know, he's looking at me like I have 10 heads and said, man, what do you do for a living? So I told him what I did for a living. He said, do you have any sports marketing experience? I said, yes. I played lacrosse over in the country of England. So what does that mean? I said, well, I did a lot of marketing, PR, this and that. He said, well, what does that mean? I said, well, Dennis, it's come clean. I went on a radio station one time. So that was branding, PR, marketing, all that. And he's like, oh my God. And he basically wanted a BSer in certain terms to basically go out, not a BSer, but, someone who can, who likes sports, who's familiar with sports, someone that can go on the front lines and be the, lack of a better term, sports marketing spokesperson for the team. And 27 years later, here I am.
Yeah, you know what? That's the damnedest thing I've ever heard. By the way, the BSers, you had it backwards. Your job wasn't to BS. Your job was to go and talk to the BSers.
Exactly right.
I used to be among that. That's how I met John when I was pretending to do sports radio. And you know what? I didn't know about the religious thing in college. So, you go in studying religions, and whatever greater power there is blessed you, because that's the damnedest story I ever heard. Getting drunk and singing at a wedding gets you the dream job.
Well, you never know. Again, as I said, you never know who's going to turn your life around. Not that my life needed really turning around, but
set you on a path, though.
Never realized that, that would happen. So I guess the moral of the story, and I do a lot of speaking engagements to colleges and high schools, and I say, try to come up with your dream and pursue your dream if you have a dream, and you never know who you're going to meet. So just meet as many people as possible, network. Mm-hmm. And again, if you know what you want to do for living, if you're following a dream, try to find those people that will help you achieve that dream.
Yeah. You know what? You get as old as I am, and you get a lot of young people that want, because they love, communications and broadcasting and all of that. How do you do it? And you're absolutely right. You just have to keep your options open, meet as many people as you can, and be at the right place at the right time, and have your story together.
Yep, exactly right.
And the other thing,
be ready to pounce.
Yeah, and the other
ready
thing,
to pounce when the time is right.
Yeah, the other thing is, and I tell people this a lot, young guys this a lot, women too. Whatever you can do, because the lines are long. Do you know? I mean, the lines for some of these jobs are long, and anything you can do first to get in the line and get further up in the line. Somebody who knows somebody, just get a little further up the line. That can really help. So, okay, so now, then somebody says at some point, well, why call the guy director of marketing or something? This is baseball. So who came up with director of fun and games?
Well, it ties back to your old profession. So when I first started, my boss said, all right, here's your deal. We just created the position. You're not replacing anybody, but we want you to basically go around to radio stations, TV stations, meet with weather people, meet with SEPTA, meet with the zoo, basically build relationships, and basically, as much as you can, get free publicity for the team. So I figured my first way I could really make an immediate impact would be radio stations. I think we had people going around to radio stations, but I think they were really sending some of the giveaways and leaving a note saying, here's our giveaway for next Sunday, Fanatic's birthday. I figured if I build a relationship with the on-air talent, and get them immersed into the Phillies season and get them involved in Phillies promotions, then they'll naturally talk about it on the air and, obviously give promotion for the team. So I would go around to these radio stations, and as you know, I'd be there in a suit. I'm coming from corporate America, 5 years in corporate America, so I'm in a suit, and I show up, and they're looking at me in the suit, and they're like, why is this guy, is this guy one of our sponsors? Like, well, why is this guy in here, and he works for the Phillies, he's wearing a suit? And the whole time I felt like I spent half the interview talking about my job and my title as opposed to what I was trying to promote at the time. So I went back to my boss and I said, you know what? Hey, these guys are wearing Hawaiian shirts and flip-flops. I'm in there coming in with a suit. We got to get rid of that because it's just leading to them just asking about my job, and I feel very corporate. So I'm gonna dress more relaxed. But I also think I got to change my title because they keep asking about my title, and I don't even know what my title was at the time. I think it was manager of promotions. So they kept asking promotions, which was a big part of my job. But I was there really to promote all the different things around the Phillies, not just the giveaways that we're doing. So we sat at a game and we're like, let's come up with a good title that we can use just for radio. And so we're like, all right, how about Vice President Shenanigans? I said, nope, that's a little too
cute. Yeah, a little too cute.
It's a little too much responsibility on the one, maybe too cute on the other side. I said, it's got to be right in the middle. It's got to be maybe director. Director's kind of a good one. And we came up with fun and games, director of fun and games. So I ran out of cards, and I remember the lady, and I'd been there for 3 months. And the lady said, I understand you need new business cards. I said, yes, I do. So is your title the same? I said, no, actually my title changed. She said, all right. And she's typing. I said, director. She's like, okay. I said, comma, fun and games. I said, with an ampersand. So she typed it out, and she looked at me and said, really? I go, yep. So she orders them. It comes in. Next thing you know, it's official because I have the card. So I still have this card.
John, when you left the office, I'm sure she picked up the phone and said, did somebody okay this? It's before I go out and spend $14 for 4,000 cards. Who the hell? Somebody really? Okay, I thought the guy was kidding. No, it's it's one of those things where the description and the job lined up perfectly. The only guy who wears a suit that we knew that was associated with the Phillies was, of course, the Fanatic. And so you're right. You show up better dressed than the guys in the studio, and it's like, oh my God, another guy with a tie on.
Well, and it kind of, Steve, it kind of fits for, I was Rush chairman I was in a fraternity. I was Rush chairman for the fraternity. I was our secretary, which means I would get up and tell stories about the brothers. I did a lot of public speaking in insurance. And so this is another, the guy at the time, Dennis Mannion, who hired me, said, do you have any public speaking experience? And I said, I do actually, because whenever we had to sell a corporate health policy to a company, basically I had to get up there and explain all the different nuances of the new plan. And he said, well, just know that you're going to be going into these sports stations and they're going to be attacking the Phillies, and you've got to defend it, so it can get pretty nasty. I said, Dennis, you don't know what nasty is. When you're up there telling a 100-person trucking company that their wife has to go to a new gynecologist, their kid has to go to a pediatrician, they might have to go to a hospital now, not 10 miles away, but about 50 miles away, and their benefits going to be slashed and their premiums going to be more. Believe me, if they had rotten fruit or knives, they would throw it at me. I said, I think I can defend the Phillies even if they're on a 30-game losing streak. Yeah, compared to that.
I'd rather argue balls and strikes than that. It just lines up perfectly. Now, as John and I hang here on the corner, he has this free time because, as we all know, we're in a weekend when the Phillies' schedule has been wiped out. The weekend schedule they'd hoped to play against it was Toronto, right?
Yes, we were supposed to play Toronto. We were going to be the away team against Toronto, right, even though we were playing at Citizens Bank Park, because they're basically playing all their games on the road since Canada
threw them out.
They wouldn't allow back and forth across the border.
Baseball is struggling now. They're holding their breath. They're hoping that this little mini outbreak of positive tests does not spread beyond the two teams now. But as we're sitting here, we don't know. It could all change on a dime. But John's free to hang a little bit because he's not going to the ballpark every day to work. What is the situation with who goes to the park and who doesn't? How's that work?
Major League Baseball obviously got together in the off season when they're trying to plan this out, and they came up with a whole huge litany of protocols that they're going to put in place. All the different teams are going to put in place. The Phillies, we have 3 tiers, and I'm sure it's like this for a lot of teams across Major League Baseball. There's 3 tiers. The tier 1 are the people that have to be there. That'd be the players and the coaches and the trainers, the interpreters and traveling secretary. Tier 2 would be those that would need to be at the ballpark for the game, to put on a game. So that's cameramen, maybe one social media person, one PR person. That could be the people up in Fanavision, the guy running the music or the PA announcer. It's all the different people that would be, again, crucial to putting together a game. Tier 3 is everyone else. So that's, a lot of our vice presidents, accounting, marketing, human relations, all that. So I'm in tier 3, which means that I can go to the ballpark, but if you go into the ballpark, you get your temperature checked at home, you get your temperature checked when you get to the ballpark. You have to fill out any kind of symptomatic, basically a survey to make sure you're not showing any symptoms. And then for me, there's certain levels of the ballpark I'm really not allowed to go. So there's no need for me to go into the office. I can do my job from home. So I've been to the office a couple times. That's really only to pick up a credential to then go volunteer at FDR Park, where a lot of our workouts were located. It's
just a remarkable circumstance we all find ourselves in. I was thinking about, you who gets out, when you say you go to the office, you're talking about a baseball stadium, but people can't believe that's even an actual job. This must be a tough time. It must be a tough time for you, for sure. What do you think? I mean, I know you're not in contact with them on a regular basis, but how do you think the players? What do you hear about them? How are they adjusting to this? Are they able to focus and compartmentalize and say, look, we got games to play, and the rest of it sort of goes away? What are you hearing?
I think these guys obviously are bred to be so competitive. The reason how they got to that, right now there's not that many jobs in Major League Baseball. These guys have risen to the top of their profession. So they're very competitive. They want to get these games going on. They want to compete, which obviously what they do best. But I think there's also a lot of players, especially the older players who have families, or I know there's a lot of players. Zach Wheeler just had a baby. Bryce Harper's got a young one and another one on the way. And I know Mike Trout, I think his wife's either pregnant or just had a baby. I think those are the ones that are a little cautious about coming back, and some have opted out. But I think the other ones, as long as it's in a safe environment, they really do want to compete. And they know, I believe that they know how it's important for America, because right now we're going through this, and I'm going through this, where all you're seeing, even when you're going on ESPN or going on different sports sites, everything is COVID related.
Yep.
And so between the COVID and the political situation, and I think people are looking for distractions.
Yeah.
They're looking for a good distraction.
Yeah.
I think sports is that good distraction where you can get your mind off everything that's going on in your home, around the country, in your city or state, and you can actually just take your mind and watch the greatest reality show, which is a sporting event.
Yeah, that's why I'm so glad we steered you to the corner, because in addition to being able to catch up with you, that's the central issue we want to explore here now. This program is about behavioral health, which is a very broad term that has to do with a field of service wherein the way we behave has a profound impact on our physical and our psychological and emotional well-being, and that's what we like to look at from different angles. And so baseball and sports and diversions and getting your mind all off this stuff may seem a luxury in one sense, because after all, things are much more important, in fact. But on the other hand, we really want to take a look at why baseball matters. And that's that's the reason, in fact, we asked John to come by and hang with us on the Behavioral Corner. We're talking to John Brazer, who has for 27 years now worked for the Philadelphia Phillies, a Major League sports team. Of course, you know about that. He is their director of fun and games, and he's making his way through this pandemic as the rest of us are, hanging on the Behavioral Corner.
But strange as it may seem, they give these ball players very peculiar names.
You need funny names.
Strange names like Dizzy Dean and Daffy Dean.
I'm their cousin.
Who are you?
Goofy.
Well, let's see. We have who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
That's what I want to find out.
And then I say who's on first, what's on second, I don't know's on third.
Yeah, you know the fellow's names?
Yes.
Well, who's on first?
Yes.
I mean the fellow's name?
Yes.
I mean the guy playing first.
Who?
The fellow playing first.
Who?
The first baseman.
Who?
The guy playing first.
Who is on first?
Well, what are you asking me for?
Every storm runs out of rain, according to the great Maya Angelou. Her words can remind us of one very simple truth, that storms do cross our paths, but they don't last forever. So the question remains, how do we ride out this storm of COVID-19 and all the other storms life may throw our way? Where do we turn when issues such as mental health or substance abuse begin to deeply affect our lives? Look to Retreat Behavioral Health. With a team of industry-leading experts, they work tirelessly to provide compassionate, holistic, and affordable treatment. Call to learn more today. 855-802-6600. Retreat Behavioral Health, where healing happens.
So, John, let's pick up on this notion of why baseball matters, and let me set it up by saying that baseball has always been, well, it's a national pastime, and all the cliches apply. We now live, of course, in the golden age of information. It often leads to cynical views of things, and that certainly sports hasn't escaped that. We now are privy to everything about these athletes, from their marital status to their drug use to their contract negotiations. The whole effect of that is to, I think, diminish the innocence that used to attend itself to being a fan. You didn't have to defend being a fan. You were a fan because of the pure delight in sitting back, listening to or watching a sporting event. Baseball. Baseball has this long, leisurely pace. It unfolds over the summer. It turns into autumn. It's just a wonderful, relaxing pastime that's been momentarily shattered. Some people are saying, why bother? Why is baseball important enough to go through all this?
I went to baseball games with my dad, and there's tons of people listening to this podcast that went to baseball games, their parents or a sibling. And as you said, it's a 3-hour game. When you go to a football game, basketball game, or hockey game, you're going in there, and during those periods or quarters or halftime, I mean, it's intense until there's a little breakage, or then intense. Baseball, it lends itself to building relationships with, whether it's your family or whether it's taking a client, and a lot of people have great memories. I certainly do, and I'm sure you do too, of going to games. My father passed away back in 1996, and a lot of the great memories that I have right now to this day are Eagles games, Phillies games, bonding over watching, the Flyers Stanley Cup. So I think it is important. I think from a city's pride, I think from a local pride, from building relationships with your family and friends and clients and business. I think sports are very important. Just not only just as a diversion, but just as really kind of a big thread of creating important relationships.
Yeah, a tie that binds. And by the way, when has pure escape been a crime? I mean,
right?
Sometimes you just need to turn off all that noise, as important as the noise can be in a pandemic. Just turn it off for a couple hours, and forget that the world is in a little tough spot
and
right
Steve,
now.
Look at the things that are exploding right now. Netflix and all the different TV platforms and Peloton, right? So people are looking for an escape. Whether they want to escape, whether it's again on a Peloton or working out on their own, taking long walks, whether it's watching Netflix. I mean, people are looking for a diversion, and sports to me is at least my favorite diversion. And just again, with all the angst that's being built up through, fear of this pandemic, and just, again, the political situation, and just people are looking for hopefully a nice, again, I called it a reality show, and it really is. It's a great reality show. You don't know what the script is. And we're living it right now. Here we thought we were going to be, a week into Phillies baseball, and it gets stopped. And you know what, I got to tell you, when we had a bad game last Sunday, but it was kind of nice to be yelling at why the bullpen collapsed or why Vince Velasquez couldn't go that long, as opposed to yelling at
the screaming
health situation or political situation.
Yeah, no, I know exactly who you mean. Different people to yell at, and your blood pressure can be a little lower under those circumstances. John, you're in a unique position to talk about what you've actually seen as a function of your job, the emotional benefits that can accrue from people who can get close to the game. You've had the occasion to bring, let me guess, lots of little kids and certainly families as close to the game as possible. Do you remember a couple that stand out in your mind?
Yes. First of all, just being part, we have a community relations department that does a great job, and we work very closely with Children's Miracle Network, a lot of those great charities. And so when kids come down or patients come down, we do a big ALS event, and to see the joy on their face, just coming down to meet our manager, meet some of the players coming down on the field. I can't even tell you the joy. It's one of the greatest joys I have in my job, is just seeing how something as small as baseball, we take it for granted as an employee that, Reese Hoskins and Bryce Harper and Joe Girardi. But yet, if you're a kid or you're a diehard fan and you're going through a sickness or you're going through, someone who lost their spouse, just the joy and the energy it brings to, again, as a diversion, a great diversion to get them away from their real life situation. I know one kind of little heartwarming story is when, again, I started in 94. I remember Richie Ashburn and Harry Cowles were in the radio booth, and we got a letter from some lady who grew up in Tilden, Nebraska, and that's where Richie was from.
Right.
And she was a contemporary of Richie, but she had never met Richie. She sent us this long letter saying that she's getting older and she's big Richie Ashburn fan. She's compiled this big scrapbook of all these memories of Richie Ashburn, and literally she knows she doesn't have too much time on this earth, so her biggest life dream would be to meet Richie Ashburn. It would mean everything, right? So I go through, whoever's going to set that up, or maybe I went right to Richie, and he said, just bring her in during an inning break, and I'd be happy to meet her. So, as you know, an inning break is about, you have an hour or a minute and a half at the most. So we have it set up, top of the fourth. I bring her in during a break. Well, Richie's going through her scrapbook, and you can see she's shaking. This is the biggest moment in her life. And Richie's going through all these photos. Well, all of a sudden, the producer and Harry, they're kind of waving Richie back as the minute and a half is up. And Richie said, Harry, take it for about a minute. I'm going to stay with this lady. She took this time to put together this scrapbook, and I'll be right there. And Richie was basically, Harry did it for a couple minutes into the game, and then Richie basically gave her a hug. And I took that lady out, and she was visibly crying because it literally was. Yeah. Again, yeah. That's the moment that you can. That's how you can affect people in such a small manner, just introducing somebody to a hero of theirs.
Absolutely.
So it is a great part of the job.
Yeah, and it never gets old watching somebody react to their first big sporting event in person. It can be an overwhelming thing if you're really young. And here's a guy who for 27 years, that was the job. The job was to get people as close to the game of baseball as he could. And as I said at the beginning, John, yeah, we can all get cynical about everything, and yeah, it's a big business and it's all that, but there's all kinds of big businesses. I'm not going to sit down for 3 hours though and watch something about Google. That's a big business too.
Right. But it's cool, Steve. It's too. I mentioned just the regular fan, but I bring a lot of celebrities. We bring a lot of celebrities to the ballpark, and it's amazing how the celebrities who have their own jaded life, who have their own life in the spotlight, and they're like little kids when they come down in the field. Yep. And we've had Eddie Vedder, we've had Meatloaf, we've had Alice Cooper, we've had politicians, we had Supreme Justice Alito. We've had all these different people come down in various aspects of life who are huge in their own respective world, and they come down and they're like a little kid when they get to the ballpark.
Yeah, you've worked with lots of athletes who had to, on a certain level, buy into all of that. It is part of the job description. It's not just going out and playing the game. I'm sure some were better at it and took more naturally to it than others. Do you remember one or two of the guys who just were just the best at that kind of pressing the flesh?
Scott Rolen, if you remember Scott Rolen, sure. Third baseman. Scott and I were fairly close in age, and I was young when he was coming up. And this is just a small personal story, but we used to go to dinner, and he was a big music fan, as am I, and we'd go to concerts together. And as I mentioned earlier, my father passed away in 1997, and it was sudden. Scott was second year with the Phillies, and the team was on the road. And my mom went to the church before the funeral to work on logistics, and she came back and said, "Who's Scott Rolen?" And I said, "Scott Rolen, he's our third baseman." Why? Said he left this huge bouquet of flowers for Dad. And I found out later he didn't go through PR. Someone told him that my father passed away. He found a florist in Wayne, Pennsylvania, and he found the church, and he mailed it out on his own. And here's this kid that's 23 years old, second year of Major League Baseball player, and that touched me more than anything than any player's ever done. But as far as like getting it from a business point of view or getting it from a charity point of view, we've had so many. I mean, you can't even. I know Jim Thome was absolutely phenomenal. Shane Victorino got it. Brad Lidge might be the smartest player we've ever had. On that note, Steve, I used to go Chad Durbin. I don't know if you remember Chad.
Yep.
I used to give. I'm a big Jeopardy fan. I'd come down to the clubhouse and I would give Chad Durbin the final Jeopardy question. So I gave him this one question, and he didn't get it right. And I said, "Do you think anybody would get it?" He said, "Brad Lidge will get this in a second." So I went over to Brad and I said, "Hey, Brad, I got a final Jeopardy question for you." He's like, "Shoot." I said, "All right, this." I'm going to butcher the question, but it was this 15th century figure has a statue at the Vatican to this day to commemorate the time he was imprisoned. Who is this person? Right? So I asked that to Brad Lidge. Brad Lidge, without even thinking, just doesn't even bat an eye, says Galileo Galilei. I said, "Oh my gosh!" I got it right away. But on a humanitarian point of view, Brad was awesome. I mean, you could Ryan Howard. I mean, I'm forgetting millions of these.
Sure.
Chase, Jimmy, all these guys. We really were blessed to have terrific guys. And it's also the organization that Bill Giles, started with Bill Giles and then it got passed to Dave Montgomery, and now it's Andy McPhail, but it's and our ownership with the Middletons and the Bucks. But we really do have a family atmosphere, and charity is very, very important. We've been doing that, as I mentioned, the ALS event since, I believe, 1986, and still goes strong every year. And it's I'm proud to be part of that, the organization where we're able to do that.
Well, you should. I mean, without overstating this and blowing a lot of smoke here, the roots of this baseball team in our town here are very deep and go back very far, and they're real. There's no doubt about that. Now, it's sort of to wrap up this notion here of why it matters. You have now been in 27 years with the ball club, so you have seen baseball come through like the rest of us. 9/11, for instance. The economic calamity in 2008, baseball came through that. This season is what it is. We hope it works its way out to the conclusion, and there's some kind of playoffs in the end. But it is what it is. You have no doubt that baseball will endure as we understand it going forward.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously hope so. Going back to 9/11, I do remember the first game back. I believe we played the Braves. This is probably about a week, I guess, after. I can't remember the exact date, but it was a very emotional night. I don't know if you were at the ballpark then. It was a really emotional night. And then back at the game, we used to go to the press club, and a lot of the writers, a lot of the camera guys, some people in Fanavision, some PR people, we'd go up there and have a beer to wait till traffic dies down and then go home. And Harry Kalas would always be up there. Well, Harry Kalas was up there, and Harry was very patriotic. Harry was very emotional. I remember we all sat down, had a beer. Nobody said a word. Harry said, "Well, I'm going to lead everyone in a singing God Bless America." And everyone got up, and literally Harry was crying, and everyone was hugging each other, and we were singing God Bless America, led by Harry Kalas. So,
well, you know what? I mean, again, to strip away all of the sophistication and cynicism that can attach itself. When you get down to it, it is a bonding effort. It is a bonding ritual that baseball represents, like all sports and all fandom does. And boy, do we need to be reminded in even this small way, we are at the end of the day all in this together. I don't want to sound like Field of Dreams here now, but Roosevelt told Major League Baseball during World War II, no, don't stop the games, keep playing. We know you just described the 9/11 effect of this thing. We really do need baseball right now.
Again, I started in 94, and that's when the strike hit that August. And people, my first year, I can't, the vitriol that people had, that baseball, again, lasted through all those events that you had mentioned, and yet, the World Series gets canceled because of the strike. So I think baseball knows it's important, knows its value. If we can make this work, assuming that it's safe, obviously we want to keep the coaches safe. We want to keep the players safe, the players' family, coaches' family. I mean, everyone's safe that's involved in this. Again, the protocols we have, I mean, obviously there was an outbreak with the Marlins. The story hasn't fully come out, but it sounds like they weren't following certain protocols and they were taking some liberties that maybe this is good that it happened in the beginning.
Yep.
Because this is a warning sign, much like NBA when Lou Williams, went out of the bubble, caused all kinds of negative attraction for him. And then I think that's basically going to say to the NBA, hey, you don't want to be a Lou Williams, don't want to get out of the bubble. If one person makes that mistake, it's going to affect the whole league. And I think you're seeing the effect in baseball right now with everything the Marlins are going through and how it affected us, how it affected the Yankees. Again, if people can stay safe, I hope we can pull this off. I mean, I think Major League Baseball plan had as good a plan as possible. Again, working with the states and the city and the CDC and, just trying to keep it as safe as possible. I know what we've done as an organization as far as, keep scrubbing down the clubhouse and just all the testing that takes place at home or when you get to the ballpark and how we're spreading out the players. As I mentioned, some of the guys were working out at FDR, some of the guys were working out at the ballpark, some guys work out in the morning, some guys work out at night. Players, when we had games, would be in the stands, would be away from people. You're going to have some, I saw some guys high-fiving. Well, I'm sure they've been told you can't do that. Even in the emotion of the moment, you can't do that. So hopefully this is a learning process. Hopefully we can get through this. But I believe strongly that sports are very important, again, to get us going through this pandemic.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And, it's never made more obvious that you don't have to be a baseball fan to root for baseball. We'd like we'd like to see this succeed, certainly for all of us. And for you as well, John. I'm sure you want to get back to the ballpark. John Brazer.
Yep, I definitely do.
John, thanks for hanging with us on the corner. And by the way, thanks for bringing the birds. I know you keep them in that little cage when you travel.
Are they loud out here? I went outside to get away from my barking dog. So I guess I went from one fire to another.
No, we're on the corner anyway. It's great. John Brazer, thanks, pal. See you at the ballpark someday soon.
All right, Steve. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
That's it for now. And make us a habit, hanging out at the Behavioral Corner. And when we're not hanging, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter on the Behavioral Corner.